All right, my name's Vance,
I'm Caden.
and we're going to go through the case analysis of the Chernobyl disaster and the ethical aspects of it.
Cool. So this is our causal loop diagram of the Chernobyl disaster. It is a drift to low performance, and so that means it's reinforcing something negative, in our case, poor safety culture. Let's dive into it. So on the left side, we have more poor safety culture leads to more pressure to meet performance expectations. So the workers, they're being told to do this stuff, and if they don't, these bad things will happen to them because of their bosses will do that to them. And so they're just trying to get things done. So more pressure leads to less willingness to report their concerns because they don't want to deal with those consequences. They just want to get their job done and get paid and go home. And so more or less willingness to report leads to less transparency. They're keeping secrets. The higher-ups are keeping secrets. There's just a lot of information being withheld in this place. Less transparency leads to less ethical awareness. They're not thinking about, is this okay, is this not? They're just thinking about, is this what they want me to do? And if that's the case, then they're just the workers are just going to do it. And all of this leads to a more poor safety culture.
And then we have on the right side another reinforcing loop that it contributes on top of one another that is compound to overall keep decreasing the safety culture. We see an increase in poor safety culture results in a decrease of accountability. Nobody's holding each other accountable within the operation. No engineers are checking other engineers to make sure they're following the rules, and the safety team's not present to also do the same. Less accountability leads to less training. They're not knowing the rule book. They're not following, if they were being held accountable, if they were told of the consequences of their actions, then they'd be less likely to have, a normalization of deviance. And, they'd follow the rules, and they would make sure to consult with everybody to make sure everything's in line so that the success of the reactor would be in their favor. And then we see an inverse relationship to the trust and authority. So we have an increase in deviance and a decrease in trust and authority. Nobody's checking with the safety crew and what they've done, and we're not trusting the rules and regulations that they've put in. And so all of this results in a poor safety culture. And the main leverage point would be the lack of the proper safety culture. It would have prevented overall, it would have flipped the script. It wouldn't have been a degrading loop. It would have been a upgrading loop. And, the proper safety culture should be the cornerstone of the job, and consulting with the entire team before proceeding with tests and operating the reactor.
Yeah, and so this is what our causal loop diagram would look like with our virtue applied. We believe our virtue is honesty, and we believe that the loops would look significantly different, or the environment would look significantly different with more honesty. So overall, the systems look quite similar. However, there are some differences. And also, again, it's a reinforced loop because everything's building on top of each other, but instead of it being for a negative culture, it's for a more positive culture. So the first difference we have is the safety culture to pressure to meet performance expectations. So in this case, it's more positive safety culture, which leads to less pressure to meet the performance expectations for the individual. Guys are less worried about, is this what my boss wants? And it's more of, is this okay? Because then that will lead to more of a willingness to report, and that leads to a lot of better things. The next thing is the ethical awareness. So with the raising of the ethical awareness and all these other things, it leads to a more positive safety culture because there's less secrets. Information is being spread. They can learn all these good things. Another difference is the safety culture to accountability. Now it's a more positive safety culture, so everybody is keeping each other accountable, which is perfect. We want that. And then the other one is the trust and authority is higher now because everybody's working together, and that leads to a more positive safety culture. So all of this, with the honesty, this leads to a better culture, and that is our presentation. Thank you for tuning in.